Welcome to the first episode of Miss Harris's Social Studies class. Today we're going to be looking at medieval Europe, specifically looking at Standard 733, Standard 734, and 735. 732 asks you to identify the physical location and features of Europe, including the Alps, the Ural Mountains, the North European Plain, and the Mediterranean Sea, and the influence of the North Atlantic Drift. The first thing that we're going to look at is the North Atlantic Drift. It is responsible for moderating the climate of Western Europe. The Northern European Plain obviously runs through the northern part of the continent. The Alps, which are a mountain range that run across the northern border of Italy. The Ural Mountains are responsible for separating Asia and Europe. And then obviously the Mediterranean Sea is the last waterway that we have left, and it is just south of Italy. "733. Describe the development of feudalism and manorialism, its role in the medieval European economy, and the way in which it was influenced by physical geography, specifically looking at the role of the manor and the growth of towns. Feudalism was influenced by a lot of different things. It is simply a political order. When invaders swept through Europe, people turned to the nobles for protection. As we know, at the end of Europe, when Rome fell, there was a period of time of civil unrest for about 300 years, and that is what launched us into the Dark Ages. Nobles governed and protected the people in return for services, such as fighting in a noble's army or farming the land. It's important to remember that feudalism is simply protection in return for service. After the fall of Charlemagne's empire, strong governments collapsed in Western Europe. Kings lost much of their power. Local landowning nobles became increasingly important in political affairs, all leading to the political order of feudalism. Looking a little deeper into feudalism, we can look at the hierarchy. By 1100, feudalism had made Europe safer. Nobles repaired roads, arrested bandits, and enforced the law. Meanwhile, new technology enabled people to produce more food and goods. Europe's population grew for the first time since the fall of Rome. So feudalism was in fact a positive influence on Europe. Looking at this hierarchy, at the bottom we obviously have peasants. They make up the highest population. Knights and vassals are right above them. They work for the nobles, who obviously have been given land to them by the king. That is going to lead us into our first interview for today. We're going to welcome to the show Generic Peasant 1. Welcome to the show, Generic Peasant 1. Tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from.
Hi, I'm Generic Peasant 1, straight out of the 11th century. I'm from the noble Collier Manor, just south of the noble Anderson Manor.
Ah, manorialism. So I assume you live in a feudal order.
Yeah, I just finished up a long day in the field. Hopefully me lord doesn't see me talking to you. I can't even marry without his permission. I'm a serf.
I assure you, you're safe here in America in the 21st century. We have labor laws.
Oh, good, good.
One more question, I'll let you get back to the 11th century. What is life like for a peasant?
Well, I work year-round in the field and do whatever my noble tells me. We're working on this rad new invention. Yeah, we're gonna put this large wooden collar on Enrique. That's me lord's horse. Yeah, so he can pull the plow then. It's for plowing the field. Okay? So that will cut time in the field in half, so I can spend more time dancing in the village green.
Ah, peasants dance.
Yes, we do. We love it. It's our favorite thing. Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, gotta go. Me lord's coming.
Okay. Moving on. 734. Demonstrate understanding of the conflict and cooperation between the papacy, which is just a fancy word meaning the Pope, and European monarchs, including Charlemagne, Gregory VII, and Emperor Henry IV. First, we are going to look at the relationship between the papacy and Charlemagne, In 800, Charlemagne came to Rome and defended the Pope against unruly Roman nobles. On Christmas Day, Charlemagne was worshiping at the Church of St. Peter in Rome. After the service, the Pope placed a crown on Charlemagne's head and declared him the new Roman emperor. He did not want people to think the Pope had the power to choose who was emperor. Despite this concern, Charlemagne accepted his duties as emperor and worked to strengthen the empire. And later on, he will become one of the greatest Roman kings of all time. Looking at the papacy and Emperor Henry IV, not as much of a positive relationship between those two. Elected Pope in 1073, Gregory VII declared that only the Pope had the power to appoint high-ranking church officials. Pope Gregory's order angered Henry IV. He was the Holy Roman Emperor, and he had been choosing bishops in Germany. Henry insisted on naming his own bishops. Gregory then declared that Henry was no longer emperor and excommunicated him. From our past conversations about excommunication, we know that that means, according to Catholicism, that you are not able to go to heaven once you are excommunicated from the church. 735, examine the Norman invasion, the Battle of Hastings, and the impact of the reign of William the Conqueror on England and northern France. In the middle, you'll see an image of William the Conqueror. In 1066, the last Anglo-Saxon king of England died without an heir. A noble named Harold Godwinson claimed the English throne. In France, a relative of the Anglo-Saxon kings, William, Duke of Normandy, said that he, not Harold, was the rightful king of England, so we had a dispute between those two. In the fall of 1066, William and his army of Norman knights landed in England. They defeated Harold and his foot soldiers at the Battle of Hastings. William was crowned King of England and became known as William the Conqueror. This brings us to our second interview today. Welcome to the show, Charlemagne. Not to be confused with Charles the Hammer, who halted the spread of Islam into Western Europe, this king united most of Europe under one central government for the first time since the fall of the Roman Empire.
Thanks for having me. I have one request before we get started here. I've always wanted to come out to my own theme song. Do you mind if we do that?
Sure, Your Majesty. Whatever you need to feel most comfortable.
Ah, perfect. Charlemagne, Charlemagne, also known as Charles the Great.
Why do you refer to yourself as Charles the Great?
Pretty much because I'm awesome, and because I conquered a bunch of land in Europe.
Nice. Your trusty advisor Einhard described you in this way. Charles was large and strong and had a lofty stature, his nose a little long, hair fair and face laughing and merry. He used to wear the Frankish dress. Next to his skin, a linen shirt and linen breeches, and above these, a tunic fringed with silk. Overall, he flung a blue cloak, and he always had a sword girt fastened about him. Would you say this is a pretty accurate description of yourself?
Why, yes! Other than the long nose, of course, and the dress. I do not wear dresses. My sword is always with me as a symbol of my powerful kingdom. You know, I have the largest kingdom south of the Roman Empire, since the fall of the Roman Empire, you know?
Yes, I believe I read that somewhere. Last question, Your Majesty. What was it like being crowned King of the Romans by Pope Leo III? That must have been very exciting.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that crazy Pope. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. Whoops, whoop. Well, he snuck into Mass as I was, kneeling down to pray and stuck the crown right on my head. A little warning would have been nice. You know what I mean? I don't really think the Pope should have that power to decide who's king anyway, but, I went with it. Who's going to turn down being king? And I'm pretty good at kinging it.
According to history, that's true. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Ah, well, thanks for having me. It was a blast. From the past.